Good morning to this second out of third days for HC Andersen's virtual Nordic Growth Days. Welcome everybody. The first presenter today is Wong from NeoDynamics, medtech company based in Sweden. And for the audience, please post questions during the presentation and I will forward them to Aaron. The session will last for 20 minutes presentation and 5 minutes for Q&A. Welcome, Aaron. Please carry on.
Hi, good morning, class. Thank you very much. Yes, this morning I'd like to introduce NeoDynamics. I'm Aaron Wong, the CFO of NeoDynamics. And to start with an executive summary of the company. NeoDynamics are a Swedish medtech company listed on the Nasdaq First North Stock Exchange, and our headquarters are in Stockholm. And we specialize in the development of an innovative way to biopsy suspected breast cancer. This year in September, we received FDA approval in the US to commercialize our product, which is very exciting. We're very much looking forward to that. And besides breast cancer, we have other indications that we are looking to, for example, prostate cancer. And the company has a small but strong and experienced team. A short overview of the history of NeoDynamics. So the patented technology, the pulse technology, was invented at the Karolinska Institute in Sweden, which is quite a prestigious university hospital here in Stockholm. And shortly after that, NeoDynamics was founded in 2012. In 2016, the first generation of the product was CE marked, and then clinical studies started in 2017. In order to raise capital for ongoing R&D and improvements in the product, the company was listed in 2018 on the Spotlight Stock Exchange in Stockholm, and thereafter the second generation of the Pulse platform was developed. It was kind of unfortunate that in 2019 we saw the outbreak of COVID, which restricted the launch in Europe, as many of our accounts were unable to actually go in and demo the product to clinicians. And that lasted for a few years. And then in 2022, we actually uplisted to Nasdaq First North. And the reason we did that was because Nasdaq has a more broader platform for investors overseas, specifically in the US, where we received our FDA clearance. And we've been working hard in the fourth quarter to soft launch the US, and we expect it to kind of go full speed in January. So the value proposition of the technology and the product itself, and this goes for both clinicians and patients, is that with the pulse technology, we get much better control of the needle when we come to biopsy suspected breast cancer, which means that we have better precision. We also can have larger tissue yield. And with the 3 needles that we have to biopsy, we have a system that is very intuitive and very easy. And as I said, with the 3 needles, we can approach a wide range of lesions in different parts of the breast and axilla. There's less need for surgery. I mean, one of the ways in which the axilla, which is under the armpit, is biopsied is from surgery, which is kind of where they cut you open and actually go in. With our FlexiPulse needle, we're able to biopsy that without surgery, and that's the needle which we are going to be using in the US, that we're launching in the US. And it's less expensive than surgery, and it's also less expensive when we consider the VacuPulse needle and its alternative to stereotactic biopsies. We get improved quality of samples, which is always better for the people in the hospital to analyze the samples, and it's a more cost-effective solution. So within Europe, where we have this kind of cost containment, it's it's a better overall package for those people. So I just want to go on to the market and our strategy. We have 3 key pathways that we are approaching, and number 2 I'll go into, which is the US. But at the moment we have ongoing commercialization efforts in Europe, where we're evaluating the product together with over 30 centers. And in 2022 we had some symbolic sales. We've faced some delays with the product, and I'll go on to that a bit later. But we have, as I mentioned in the first slide, a highly skilled sales force with over 80 years of experience from large medtech and pharma, such as Bayer, Takeda, and Daiichi Sankyo. And the focus here in Europe really was on the development of the relationships with the KOLs and the reference clinics. As we are entering the US will very much look on Europe and those KOLs in order to see the value proposition of the product. I'll move to China, but I'll go back to the US, which is number 2 in the next slide. And then after the US, we plan to enter China in 2024. And the Chinese regulatory body very much looks towards the FDA for how the commercialization went. So on to the US. So in September, we were approved by the FDA, which was exciting, and it was a long time coming. I think we all expected some delays because of obviously the pressure on government agencies with COVID and the lack of resources. However, with the really strong case that we put forwards in the FDA approval, we managed to get it through in just over 6 months, which is amazing. And what we're going to focus on is the FlexiPulse needle. And this needle, I mentioned earlier, we've had some delays in our product, but with the FlexiPulse needle, we actually don't have any delays, so that's ready to go. And we'll focus on leading breast surgeons to start off with. And the reason why we're doing this is because they have a more assertive attitude towards purchasing. And we will afterwards launch the VacuPulse needle to replace the stereotactic biopsies. And stereotactic biopsies use a huge machine, which is very, very expensive. So we hope to come in under that and be a good alternative to the stereotactic. And we'll focus there on radiologists. And on the right of the slide here, we've just got a couple of points, information points. And the global breast biopsy market is expected to be worth around 1.7 billion in 2025. A very, very big market. And globally, more than 2.3 million women in the world are diagnosed with breast cancer each year. And in the US, breast cancer is one of the leading causes of cancer-related death in women. And this is second only to lung cancer. Axillary biopsies carried out in the US are approximately 300,000, and that's what we're targeting first. In the US, we've been very careful when we've kind of developed this strategy of commercialization to have people on the ground, but to not load up the business with unnecessary costs. So we have a few very skilled people working towards the US market. The first is Magnus Precht, and he's been on board for several months now, developing a strategy and the go-to-market over there. More recently, we have appointed Matt Colpoys as the CEO of NeoDynamics, Inc. Matt Colpoys is based in the US and currently serves on the board of directors. He has a lot of experience within the biotech and medtech arena. Shortly before, we hired Brendan Carney as the national sales director, and Brendan Carney will be responsible, together with Matt, to introduce the product to the KOLs and to really start working with the relationship with them and the product. It's expected that at some point, Brendan will build out a small but focused team over in the US, the US is a very big country, and we will work sort of narrow but deep in our approach, meaning that we'll work center on center and get them up to speed before moving to the next center. On the medical affairs side, we have Anna Forsberg, and Anna was really key in getting the FDA file approved. She worked very hard on that, so kudos to Anna. And for the reimbursement support and customer service, we have recently partnered with a company called Diligent Healthcare, a very big outfit. I think they're actually based in Ireland, but they have support all over the world, and they will be very much focusing on providing support on the reimbursement side, and also a dial-in for customer support on the product. So we see that there is an increasing demand for precision biopsies. As I mentioned, the global biopsy market is expected to reach around 1.7 billion by 2025, with a strong single-digit CAGR of 8.7% during the period. And the reason why we've chosen the US as our next biggest market is because it's so large, and it represents almost 50% of the global breast biopsy market. And as they say, if you're not in the US with medtech, then you're not really anywhere. So the US is very important. And in the US, they tend to take more samples per patient, and they're not restricted on cost in the same way as Europe is. So in 2022, the US had an estimated almost 300,000 invasive and 52,000 non-invasive breast cancer cases. And it's very unfortunate to see that 1 in every 8 women in the US is expected to develop breast cancer during their lifetime. So kind of shocking statistics there. And just short of 300,000 annual number of axilla lymph node biopsies, of which 200,000 of those were open biopsies, i.e. surgery. And that's what we kind of really want to try to take and avoid, is the open biopsy, because it needs a lot of resources behind surgery. I mean, you need the operating theatre, you need many people behind it. And what we want to try to do is take that type of biopsy and bring it sort of into the doctor's office, as it were. And our pulse technology, we are focusing on breast cancer, but that being said, it's not the only thing we're focusing on. There are other indications where we see a need for precision biopsies, and one of the big ones is prostate cancer. The current methodology of taking a biopsy from the prostate is not only invasive, it comes with additional risks such as infections and sepsis. So we believe that our technology can be used to take biopsies in a slightly different way that would help reduce or eliminate those risks. And another potential use of our technology is the delivery of nanoformulated slow-release cytotoxic drugs, which can actually be administered directly into the suspected tumor. And our technology can be used for a whole host of other specific organs, such as the liver and the neck and the head and things like that. So we're well positioned for the next stage after we commercialize in the US with the breast. And just to kind of wrap it up, our vision is to make the pulse technology the standard of care for ultrasound guided biopsies, and that's irrespective of organ. So thank you very much.
You're welcome, Aaron. And with that said, we open up for questions, and there's already a couple of questions coming in here. But first, I would like to ask you, Aaron, could you elaborate a little more on your US strategy? I know you have some really good slides in there, but are you, so you told us that you're targeting the surgeons, you're targeting the armpit, where there's an unmet need today, and with the value proposition also that you actually face, focusing on that area. With the small organization you have in place, how many clinics are you able to address, and what kind of market are you going for?
Yeah, I mean, with the small team we have, I mean, it's reasonable to assume that we would be targeting a handful of clinics, and I would say in the single-digit number before, you know, we move on. And as I mentioned, it's important for us to get each clinic up and running properly before we move on. So our strategy has always been to work narrow and deep, in that we will work and focus on quality rather than quantity. Our product and our strategy has never been a volume-driven one; it's been a price-driven one, and that's where we see our first steps into the US. That being said, after that, if there is you know, an exponential uptick in demand for the product, then we will adjust our activities and our strategy accordingly, and that's where we will either decide to invest more in the headcount side, or there's other ways to kind of lead that commercialization, whether that be a partnership or some sort of distribution. So we're very open to see how it develops.
Thanks, Aaron. A little more about the market. There's a question here coming up. How big a share of the market are you expected to take? And of course, it's early days.
All of it.
Yes, of course. But if you look into the armpit market, where you have a very strong value proposition, and you mentioned around 200,000 cases, is it to experience a good growth case? Is it 5% or 20%? What are we talking about?
Yeah, I mean, it's high single digits, and the total addressable market, as I outlined, is 50% of 1.7 million, so around $840 million. So that, I mean, that's the total addressable market, and within that, obviously, you've got different parts of the biopsy market, but the 300,000 cases is where we're going for, and I would say that, yeah, high single digit, low double digits market share on that.
Yeah. And now you go full commercial next year. Is it? When do you expect to see your first sales coming in, Aaron? Do you have any guesstimates on that?
Yeah, I mean, ideally we would like to see first sales in Q1, but we have to be mindful that this type of setup where we have, you know, a small amount of resources, it takes time. The good thing is that we have leverage from the clinical work we've done in Europe, and also the relationships we've built with the KOLs and the clinicians here in Europe. And as big as the world is, within our space, they all do talk. So we expect that will be very useful for us, in that when it comes to actually gaining the kind of confidence within the surgeons to use this, they will look to what we've already done in Europe, which I think is very positive.
Yeah, and there's a question about Europe as well. With your organization in place, both in US and Europe, of course, is it realistic to expect that you can drive both markets? I know you have a path for both markets. Could you please address that one? Yeah.
I mean, we already have headcount in place in both markets, so it's not that we need to scale up. Obviously, in the US, we need to scale up, but in Europe, we have the resources already. So there won't be any, I would say, scaling up of costs in Europe. We have key account managers placed in Sweden, Germany, and the UK, and they're doing a fantastic job to negotiate and to work with the clinicians, especially with the delays we've faced. So the demand is, I mean, I'm pleased and excited to say the demand is there. I touched on the delays in the product, and the reason why we've had the delays is because we've listened to our customers, and we've listened to what they've had to say about the product, and for us it's important to introduce those incremental improvements to the product, you know, before we continue to roll them out. I think that's quite a key part of how we work together on the quality side.
And you mentioned also in the presentation, and I think most investors know that the structural differences between Europe and the US market is why it's two different stories, of course. But in Europe, you also experience these high-profile clinics that are actually the ones you are addressing, as I remember.
Yeah, exactly. University clinics and also some specific reference centers. Europe has been, Europe is really where we started. And these are very much part of the foundation of the strategy of how we expand globally. There's some very important and high profile KOLs and reference centers in Europe that we've successfully onboarded, and we're working with them with pilot studies. So yeah, Europe is where we started, and it's a very important market for us in addition to the US.
Well, then there's a question about capital situation, and that's one issue that faces the whole industry, unfortunately.
Yes.
But could you very briefly update us on your situation, Aaron?
Yes, I mean.
Okay.
Sorry, excuse me. The capital situation. Yes. So, as you mentioned, I mean, the situation globally is that it's becoming more and more difficult to raise capital. I think we're under no illusion there. And as a 100% equity financed business, we go through these capital raises, I would say, quite frequently. That being said, I mean, the calls that I've been having around capital raising and our strategy to it, I was speaking to somebody who said something quite poignant. They said that if you have a good product, you will always be able to raise capital. And I very much believe that that's the situation in our case. I'm working, and I always look out for ways in which to finance the business in a sustainable and long-term way. Obviously, I can't go into any details about what we're working on and how we're working, but all I can say is that I'm very excited about the US and what we can do there.
Thanks a lot, Aaron. And then one final question here. Now you mentioned Europe is already in place. You have US you target in 2023 for full commercialization. Next on agenda, is that the China strategy, or is it other indications? And what is your go-to-market strategy in China?
Yeah, it's both. And it kind of seems because I was asked about resources earlier and how you manage your resource side. But what I can say is that it's both. I mean, we want to be able to continue to develop our product whilst going to new markets. But we do it in a very systematic manner. We don't obviously. It's important not to overstretch ourselves with our resources, but we move, we plan, we decide, and we move, we plan, we decide, and throughout that process, we make sure that we hit our objectives properly. That being said, we will be developing new indications along the way. That's a very important part of our business model. And then when it comes to China, our go-to-market strategy, we're still developing it. I mean, we have a good network of contacts in China that will help us to, I would say, get into China, because China's, I mean, as you and many listeners might know, is quite a unique market in that it's very insulated. But with our contact network, we believe that we will find a good way to enter the market there.
Thanks a lot, Aaron. With that said, we are heading for 25 minutes, so we managed to go through the questions as well. And thanks for all the nice questions from the audience. And with that said, I will hand over the word to the next company. Enjoy your day, Aaron, and audience as well.
Thank you, Klaus.
Welcome back. We now have the pleasure to welcome Scape Technologies, represented by the CEO, Søren Bøving. And before I hand over the word or presentation to you, Søren, I will just remind the audience that you can ask your questions in the comment field below. And with that, I will just hand over the call to you, Søren, for a presentation of approximately 20 minutes, followed by a short Q&A session in the end. So give it up for you, Søren.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for joining. Good morning, everyone. Yes, my first slide here is including a picture of 3 happy sales guys at the Parcel and Post Expo in Frankfurt this October, introducing our package picker in Europe for the first time. So I just wanted to share that with you. I think that was a quite important event for us, going out with a completely new product to a new market area. So that's what I that's why I wanted to share that with you on the front page. But let's dive into a short presentation of who we are. So what we are offering at Scape are very advanced robotic automation solutions, combining robots with vision, basically. So the market area now ranges from very small SMEs to very large and demanding customers in the automotive area. And then recently we have expanded our market area into distribution and logistics with the package picker. The company was founded where we had the patent of our bin picking solution back in 2005, where it was founded at the University of Southern Denmark by our current CTO and Professor Ivar Balslev. So we have been around for some years, and we are now 23 employees in Denmark, 3 in Germany, and then we have this cooperation with in China, where we have more than 20 people now working on selling our solutions in China. So that's also quite interesting. The major shareholders is Shenzhen Scape Technologies, our partner in China, with 51% of the shares, and then René Denker, our CTO, and myself are having some shares as well, and actually are the next second biggest shareholders. Our revenues have been varying over the years. So we had a dip in revenues during Corona and the crisis in the automotive industry and so on. This year we had 5 million in revenue in the first half year, and we have a guidance for the year of revenues above 9 million. At the right side of this picture, you see some of our customers, and as you can tell, some of them are household names in the automotive industry. So I'll not go through all of these events here, but just to make some pinpoint some major events for Scape. One were that we in 2012 were able to introduce the world's first standardized bin picking solution. So it was no longer a big unforeseeable project to build a bin picker. It was standardized by Scape, standard software components, hardware components, meaning that we could actually make a price list, and there was no surprises for customers entering an agreement with us to deliver a bin picker. So that was a breakthrough for us and actually in the industry, and that resulted shortly after with the first orders from Volkswagen in Chemnitz. Later in 2018, we were listed at the stock exchange Nasdaq First North in Copenhagen, and we used that investment for making our products even easier to use, to make it easier to scale our business through partners. Unfortunately, then right after that came Corona, and that was of course a hit to us. But nevertheless, we spent the time during Corona to keep developing new products and hiring more people actually in development. So we came out of that in pretty good shape. And our focus areas now for this year and also for next year would be to scaling our sales further, probably find some more distribution partners, and keep strengthening our application areas, and always be improving the user friendliness and ease of use of the applications. So, but the whole thing started with bin picking. So we are known as the bin picking company. We have probably the best solutions at all in the market for bin picking, reliable solutions, trusted by the automotive industry. So that's where we started. So let's just look at what is actually bin picking. And bin picking is the you could say the art of making placing a gripper and a camera, combining placing a gripper on a robot, combining that with a vision camera that can be on the robot or above the bin, and then pick up parts from a bin that are completely random. This is a huge task in the automotive industry, especially where they have so many parts in a car. They are coming into the factories to be picked up and placed into the production system, and we can do that and replacing manual labor by that. It seems easy, but it's actually a quite difficult task for robots, since you cannot predict on beforehand exactly where to pick up the parts, because they are randomly placed in a bin. But I think actually a way of showing it would be better. So we have a presentation, we have made a video from one of our installations at BMW in Leipzig. And if Mia, you could please show that video, then I think that will give a better impression of how things are working. Thank you. So this is from the BMW factory in Leipzig. And what we are picking up here is luggage compartment floors from a bin, which again seems pretty easy, but it's actually not that easy, because they are not always where they are expected to be in the bin. So we need to combine it with vision. We're then picking up the parts and placing them accurately in a fixture, and then they go from there into the actual production system, where they are welded together with other parts. This is one of our engineers explaining how the system is working. We see here we see the sensor above the bin, and explaining how we are actually picking up parts in a very reliable way. This is another part from the same factory, more smaller parts being picked up, and as you could tell at the brief picture, they are completely random in the bin, which is an even more difficult task, and to make sure that we can actually pick up the parts and also place them correctly, not only pick them up, but place them correctly. We also have a solution for that, which we are showing now in a short moment, picking up the part here, placing it on what we call a handling station, taking a new picture, and then we can make a 100% accurate grip and place them in with accuracy into a fixture or a machine. So that's very important with this reliability, and that's the reliability in our system is actually the reason why we have been able to sell our system to so many demanding customers in this difficult industry. Along the way, we are always working on making it more and more easy to work with the system, and we're also trying to consider, as been told in the video here, consider all aspects of the bin picking, not only being able to recognize the part, but also being able to grip the part with accuracy and put it in the right place, the final place with accuracy. So the reliability, the stability, the accuracy, the precision of our system, that has been actually what our brand has been standing for all the years, and what is helping us to new business areas. So that's what we are doing, and at least that has what been our main business in the past, and still is the major part of our business. But as I will come back to in a moment, we have also started looking at other things. So that was the video. So in terms of resources, we have 26 employees in Europe, primarily developers and system engineers. As mentioned, we have now invested even more resources in research and development. We have started a new young team of developers here in Denmark. We have sales and system engineers in Germany. And then we have these employees at Scape China, our partner in China, based in Shenzhen. They are primarily working with sales and implementation. We have some benefits from working with them since we can get some parts, some hardware parts cheaper from China. That's helping us, and it's also been a big help during Corona actually, that we had this separate business in China instead of being dependent on Europe only. But we are always working with partners as system integrators. We are not a system integrator. We are selling our software and hardware and services, typically as a sub vendor to a major system integrator delivering to the end customer. But from a sales perspective, we always have, at least for the last customers, we always have a direct connection to those customers as well, to make sure we know exactly what's going on, and also to strengthen our sales efforts. But even though we have a closer and closer relationship with our partner in China, we are still having all core development done in Denmark. So if we look ahead for what I would call an unpredictable 2023, we have been looking at our plans, and the only thing that is sure, because it's a very unpredictable market, is that we will keep developing, and we are keeping investing in development of new application areas. So in terms of our bin picking product family, these products are getting more and more matured. The last few years we have mainly been focusing on ease of use rather than a lot of new features, because it's already working. So we will be able to optimize resources here, maybe reduce a few resources dedicated to this area, and then dedicate these resources to other and new business areas, both in development and sales. One of them is the one I started with mentioning, the package picker. We introduced it in China. Now we have introduced it in Europe, starting pilot projects in Europe. And so that's a continued investment, and it seems to be a very, very interesting new business area for us, working with the logistics and distribution area, which has been growing tremendously over the years, and especially during Corona. So that's a very exciting area for us to enter. Our after sales and service and support is, as our customer base is growing, that's also growing. So that's a steadily growing business area for us to sell services, support, updates, and so on to existing customers. But then we have the new product area, which is definitely an investment area. So what we have decided is that we will adopt a new way of developing solutions, valuing and enabling customer co-creation. So we do the projects together with the first customers, and making sure that what we're actually developing is based on specific customer needs. Still, it will be based on making standard products, and for that we will base the new products we will be introducing on a 3D vision guidance platform, so that for all kind of solution applications where you will need to combine a robot with a 3D vision, we will have a platform for easily developing that kind of solutions. In the first phase, making it easier for our own developers, but in the second phase, it might as well be a tool that we can distribute to system developers and system integrators, and maybe even customers on the long term. The first example will be actually a product we developed for our bin picking solution, 3D vision object recognition. We made that to be able to recognize with the camera where's the bin actually standing, where we need to pick up the parts. But that application we developed for the bin picking can actually be used in many application areas where you have the need for combining a robot with 3D vision, so the robot can see where is the work area, what are the parts it's going to work with, and so on. So we are actually using our experience from bin picking to combine robots and vision for new applications. We have seen a huge need for that, and we are looking very much forward to enter this new market area. Finally, we are also looking for entering being part of new EU funded development projects. We think it's important that we stay sharp and are spending at least some resources on really front-edge technology and development projects, and there's a number of EU projects that we are interested in and may join, so we can have part of our development funded that way. Then I mentioned that China a few times. That's still a very important market area for us. And if you look at the macroeconomic development in China, of course they had a hard hit from the corona, but nevertheless now we are seeing it's growing again. We're seeing they are now slowly releasing the restrictions of the corona, so we actually expect a new growth in China. Maybe not the same growth that they had years back, but certainly a growth much bigger than we have in Europe. And it's still a huge market, world's biggest robotic market, world's biggest automotive market, world's biggest distribution market, and that's all the areas where we are working. If you look at the red part here, that's actually an analysis done by McKinsey saying that China is now moving from an investment infrastructure-driven economy to an efficiency productivity-driven economy, which is very interesting for us because that's exactly the reason why there's been a demand for our solutions in Europe, because the European manufacturers has been looking for constantly being more efficient and increasing the productivity, as an example, in the automotive area. So we're now seeing the same things being repeated in China as they are maturing in the industry. So we actually believe that we have a huge opportunity here in China with our solutions as well. As an example, and this is my last slide, we actually are taking advantage of our experience from Europe and China and vice versa. An example is to the left, our package picker. As I mentioned, we have now been introducing that in Europe. That was actually a product, a project starting in China, where we saw the need for this kind of product. We did some pilot projects, we tested it, we kept developing on it, and now we are moving it to Europe. And on the other hand, we are seeing a growing number of Chinese car manufacturers moving to Europe, starting working as and competing heavily against European car manufacturers. And we can definitely use our experience from European car manufacturers to get a foothold also in the Chinese automotive industry. So that's why China keep being an interesting and very important market for us. Finally, I think time is up. Thanks for participating again, and if any questions, please let me know.
Perfect, Søren. So 20 minutes exactly. Very, very, very good. But let's start with some of the endpoints here you made. So you told us about the new packer and also your work with the Expo in Germany. And you recently announced a deep technology partnership. Is that an outcome from the the Expo, or is it like your other partnership strategy outcome? Can you elaborate on this partnership?
Yeah, no, deep technology is more a traditional partnership on the bin picking side still. We are always expanding our partner portfolio. So that's not especially on the package picker, but some of our partners, traditional partners in bin picking, are actually also interested in working with us in the package picking area.
Yeah.
And actually our Austrian partner Boost, where we have sold a number of projects together with them, actually also participated at this Expo. So they might also be an important partner for that area. But we are now starting the first pilot projects in Europe, and we use the Expo as both as an introduction for us, but also as you could say a learning lesson of how things are done in Europe, which partners to enter with. So it was also a matter of building network, and we had a lot of interesting leads from direct customers, but also certainly from the partners, the system integrators working in this specific area. So that was very interesting.
Cool. Okay, and then we have some questions from the audience, and starting with the macro environment and what's going on here. There's a question about, is the current macro environment a challenge or possibility with less appetite for investment versus the need for cost savings? So what do you observe right now in the market?
Yeah, that's a good question, because it's actually a very strange situation. We are extremely busy with responding to new projects, giving proposals, doing pre-projects, demos, and so on. So that's a very good sign. On the other hand, we are still seeing a hesitation in the market area where people are uncertain, at least in Europe, people are uncertain about the situation in Ukraine, deliveries are delayed, and so on. So when to do the actual investment, making a new factory, investing in a new production line, investing in a bin picking system, we are seeing quite long decision processes. But there's lots and lots of things going on, because I think all manufacturers, they know they need to do some investment. The question is, should they do it now? Should they wait a few months, or what should they do? So that is actually what we are trying to balance. And in the meantime, we have said, okay, while we are in this situation, let's make sure we spend the time in the best possible way, building new partners and hiring developers. So we are building for the future. But on a macroeconomic level, I have no doubt that it will be a benefit, because the manufacturers will need to focus on increasing productivity and efficiency, and then they need automation. So no question that things are going in the right direction, but there are a few bumps currently on the road.
Yeah, and you also mentioned China and the pandemic and how it has affected, but can you elaborate more on this? There's a question outside from that. So have the uncertainty and the pandemic, the lockdowns, affected your sales going in, or in the second half of 2022?
So they had the specific effect that I have not been able to travel to China for a couple of years, and we have not met with our partners physically here, also for a couple of years, making things a little more difficult. But the good thing is that they have built up a sales team in China, and they are very active, and that's going very, very fast ahead. So we are very confident about our future business in China as well. During the Corona, it's true that we had troubles in Europe, and that were kind of compensated for with our sales in China, since they actually came through the first wave of Corona faster than we did, and they got up running again. So that was a big benefit for us. So I think it's very good for us to have a foothold in China, the world's one of the soon to be probably the world's biggest economy, and again they are the biggest on automotive. They are coming into Europe with that. They are moving very, very fast forward on robotics with the program Made in China in 2025. They are increasing on all areas. So in my opinion, if you want to grow your business, you cannot just stay out of China. You need to be there, and you need to have a strong partner there, and that's our take on that.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Søren. Time is running out, so I will thank you very much for the presentation. A pleasure to have you here today.
Hi to everybody, and welcome back. Now we again change tracks. We go to the biotech world. Welcome to you, Ben from ExpreS2ion Biotechnologies. Our theme is a little about 23, and we must say you are probably looking into a very, very exciting years with COVID-19 and a new start to a new project in the pipeline. But I will hand the word over to you, Ben.
Thank you very much, Michael, and thank you to HC Andersen Capital for allowing me to present ExpreS2ion Biotech here. My name is Ben Frandsen. I'm the CEO of ExpreS2ion Biotech. We have as our mission to turn complex proteins into tomorrow's vaccines, and that's exactly what we're doing, as Michael alluded to. First, I have a disclaimer. Since we are a public listed company at the Nasdaq First North Growth Market in Stockholm, I will come with some forward-looking statements. I'll let you read this in detail when we publish this presentation afterwards. We are a Denmark-based biotech company focusing on infectious diseases and oncology. Here we have a high value pipeline addressing some of the most fatal diseases around these days. We have a very strong patent portfolio backing our pipeline efforts up. We have a vaccine development platform with a very strong track record. It's been validated in partnerships and client relations for over 10 years, and it's also regulatory approved even for late-stage clinical development, as we have a phase 3 stage program going on at the moment. We are addressing the vaccine market, which on a global scale is more than $180 billion and has had a tremendous growth in the last couple of years, obviously driven by the COVID-19 pandemic. And here we have a very important stake in this field. We are advancing our pipeline towards key catalysts here in 2023, which I'll be alluding to in this presentation, especially revolving the COVID-19 vaccine. And this is the pipeline as we show it today. As I mentioned, we have pipeline activities in infectious diseases and oncology. The COVID-19 vaccine project, we call it ABNCoV2. It's in phase 3 now. It's fully out-licensed to Bavarian Nordic, which is the sponsor of the current clinical investigations, and also the eventual distributor and commercial partner in this project. We have a breast cancer vaccine project that we call ES2B-C001, where we target HER2. And here we have very strong preclinical animal data that we have announced here in 2022. It's fully in-licensed from AdaptVac, an associated company that ExpreS2ion owns 34% of. And furthermore, we have activities in influenza and malaria. And a very new thing that I want to highlight here is a CMV project, which we have just announced last week. This is a partnership with another Denmark-located biotech company called Evaxion, where we have a 50-50% partnership on developing a novel CMV vaccine, a novel cytomegalovirus vaccine, which I'm also going to address here in this presentation. We have very unique technology platforms that, as depicted here, on the left side, I'm addressing the Express platform. You will notice it's it is spelled Express with an S2, which you also find in our company name. That's because we use S2 insect cells. They are known in the industry. However, ExpreS2ion has patented an improved expression system based on these insect cells. And we have used this for more than a decade to make recombinant proteins, complex proteins, both for clients and now also for our pipeline. This technology we apply in all our pipeline projects. To the right side, you see the VLP technology. This is a virus-like particle technology that has been invented at Copenhagen University and placed in a company called AdaptVac, which ExpreS2ion owns 34% of. This allows for the bonding of any protein of interest on the surface of a VLP using a proprietary superglue system. The combination of the Express platform and the VLP technology are used in the pipeline projects for the breast cancer vaccine project, ES2B-C001, as well as in the COVID-19 vaccine, ABNCoV2, which is now in clinical phase 3, so which is all in all a very strong validation of these technology platforms. Moving into our pipeline projects, first the COVID-19 project. I think you're all aware of this disease over the last couple of years. There's a number of drawbacks with the current vaccines. The duration effect is limited. It's difficult to store and handle with the up to minus 80 degrees conditions, and addressing the mutants or variants of concern is also cumbersome. business. And we, with our COVID-19 vaccine ABNCoV2, actually can address all of these drawbacks. As mentioned, Bavarian Nordic is the sponsor of this project now. It's fully out-licensed to Bavarian Nordic. And in the last 1.5 years, they have completed a clinical phase 2 trial with very strong data. Most recently here in October, they announced 6 months follow-up data from the phase 2 trial, showing also durable antibody levels across variants of concern. Furthermore, Bavarian Nordic have initiated the phase 3 trial, where 4,000 people are going to be enrolled across the US and Europe. And this was initiated in September, and initial early readout is expected in the beginning of 2023. And Bavarian Nordic is planning for a rolling submission during 2023, hopefully with an approval in a year's time or so. Let's see about that. The interesting thing about this is that there's a licensing agreement with Bavarian Nordic, which will also flow in cash to ExpreS2ion. The licensing agreement is between the associated company AdaptVac, which we own 34% of, and Bavarian Nordic. It allows AdaptVac to receive up to 136 million euro in development and sales milestones, and single to double-digit royalties of Bavarian's revenues from ABNCoV2. Furthermore, ExpreS2ion and AdaptVac have a license agreement to allow for the Express system in the final product. And as mentioned, we own 34% of AdaptVac, and we can receive up to 2 million euro in commercial milestone payments, as well as lower double-digit percentage of AdaptVac royalties. So this is a very interesting near-term revenue stream that we look into. Moving into the breast cancer vaccine project ES2B-C001, we're addressing a very common cancer. 1 in 8 women will be diagnosed with breast cancer in a lifetime, and 25% will have overexpression of the HER2 receptor, which is exactly the target we address with our vaccine. More than 500,000, more than 600,000 women die every year from this disease, so there's a strong need for an improved medication. The current market is addressed by monoclonal antibodies, which have annual sales of more than $11 billion. 2 well-known brands are Herceptin, also known as trastuzumab, or Perjeta, also known as pertuzumab. However, these also come with some drawbacks. For example, resistance, which is known to occur in 20 to 30% of women, meaning that patients will not benefit from the monoclonal therapy at all. A potential risk of heart-related side effects, and then there's a very cumbersome administration with very frequent hospital visits, and it's a very expensive treatment as well. And basically, ExpreS2ion's HER2 targeted vaccine approach offers potential to overcome these drawbacks through internal polyclonal antibody production. That's what we do. The good thing here is I've been earlier this year and also at the end of 21 announcing the solid preclinical proof of concept data. Now here in October, these data were actually released in a very nice scientific journal called Biomedicines. So you can go in there and read the studies that we have performed. We've documented very effectively in preclinical settings that we can inhibit tumor development. We can prevent tumor development with a 95% efficiency. And very importantly, that we can actually overcome the resistance. We've seen that in vitro settings. So this is all very promising for this exciting vaccine. And now a new thing, which we have just announced last week, that ExpreS2ion is going to perform research in CMV. This is cytomegalovirus. It's an infectious disorder that is quite common. It's related to herpes, so the virus is related to the herpes family. In fact, 1 in 3 children will be infected with CMV by the age of 5, and more than 50% of adults are infected with the virus by the age of 40. These are data coming out from the US, and the seriousness around this is when you think about organ transplants and newborn babies. Here there are some concerns. 1 in 5 organ transplants, for example in kidney, liver or heart transplantations, are at risk of CMV infection. Furthermore, 1 in 200 newborns will have what is called congenital CMV infection, or CCMI. And in fact, 1/5 of newborns with congenital CMV infections will have long-term health problems. It's well known that CMV infections in newborns can cause deafness or loss of vision. And with our vaccine approach, we will do something about this. And this we're doing in a partnership with another Denmark-based biotech company called Evaxion. We have just announced this agreement last week on the 6th of December 2022. It's a vaccine discovery collaboration agreement where we join forces with Evaxion to discover and research into a novel CMV vaccine. From expression side, we are already putting this into our pipeline as a discovery stage project. We will call it ES2B-I002. We, together with Evaxion, will perform research over the next couple of years. Evaxion is a company that has a very strong system biology, computational information platform. They work with artificial intelligence in this field. They have a proprietary AI platform called Raven that will be applied for designing the gene construct that we want to use as basis for the CMV vaccine. This is super nice. And something that we are looking into in general. We have known this both when we work with clients and in our other projects, that the very early discovery efforts in looking into the bioinformatics of a novel vaccine is extremely important. And Evaxion has the tools to do that. Coming out of those tools, Expression will do what we excel in. We will make the antigen, and we have the know-how to develop the vaccine when it comes to production and further development. And then Evaxion actually also have the preclinical setting for doing early functional testing of the vaccine candidates we're looking into. We want, within this time frame of 2 to 2.5 years, we will be looking into the immunogenicity of the selected vaccine candidate. All this is going on a 50-50% cost-sharing basis. So what Expression has of cost for this project, Evaxion will pay 50% of. What Evaxion has of cost for this project, Expression will pay 50% of. And as mentioned in the press release last week, actually both companies expect these costs to be within our budgets. Most exciting is then when we've done this research in the next couple of years, we will be able to select a vaccine candidate, and Expression will have the first option to license the CMV vaccine asset. That will, of course, mean that we will have to pay some milestone payments and eventual royalties to Evaxion. And we will also be sponsoring the development onwards thereafter. We believe this project actually comes with a cost perspective which we can contain to a large extent. Now we have 2 years to use research efforts into this project, and we'll be planning more on this. So looking overall into our pipeline and near-term key catalyst, on the COVID-19 project, the ABNCoV2, of course, we are very much dependent on Bavarian Nordic. As alluded to, Bavarian Nordic are in phase 3 now with this project. The initial readout is expected in early 2023. We're looking very much forward to that. Bavarian Nordic will initiate a rolling submission to the regulatory authorities, and who knows, in a year's time, I hope we can say that it's ready for market launch, and that means in 2024 and moving onwards, there will be royalties from sales coming into AdaptVac and ExpreS2ion. So this is super exciting and a very, very important place to be for a biotech company like us. On the breast cancer vaccine project ES2B-C001, as I mentioned, we've shown very, very nice preclinical proof of concept data here in 2022. Now we're scaling up on the GMP manufacturing processes, and we have initiated the preclinical safety studies. And in fact, the preclinical safety studies, we expect outcome from this in the middle of 2023. This is very important readout because it will form the basis of the filing of the clinical trial application later in 2023. The aim with this project is to start the first human dosing in early 2024. And moving onwards, as soon as we are into a human clinical setting, I expect a window to open when it comes to discussing with potential sub-licensing partners to co-develop this going onwards. On the influenza side, I haven't had time to mention that much about that. We are enrolled in a grant-sponsored project called Indigo, together with 15 other partners in a large consortium. We have made the selected candidate in our Express system, and depending on grant funding, this project can move onwards with preclinical safety setting and GMP scale up later in 2023. The cytomegalovirus project, which is now new in our pipeline, the ES2B-I002, we have established the discovery partnership together with Evaxion, and the next couple of years we will be spending time together with Evaxion to do the research on the CMV vaccine target, applying the AI, the artificial intelligence platform in Evaxion's hands, develop the substance and move it into preclinical testing so that we can get a positive outcome and ExpreS2ion can select the lead CMV vaccine candidate in 2025. Furthermore, in malaria, let me conclude with that. We have seen in this year that we're very much dependent on University of Oxford with our lead malaria projects. The PFS 4845 project that was intended to start phase 1 study here in 2022 seems to move into 2023. I get the message from University of Oxford that it doesn't roll as fast as they had anticipated 1 year ago. That goes with the other projects that they have that we collaborate with University of Oxford as well, the RH5 VLP and the RH5 ongoing clinical phase 1 studies, which however should get a readout before the end of 2023. But this shows that it's not easy to progress a project when you work in a setting with an academic partner. So that's why I'm super happy with the CMV virus project, where we are in control of moving this onwards. Let me conclude with those words and hand back the mic to.
Perfect, Ben. Let's start with a question. Large competitors have tried on this CMV area. I think Pfizer since 2014 or even earlier, but that was when I first read it about it. Moderna is also. Why are you moving into this? You know, a little bit of elaborate a little bit on why do you think two small Danish players will make a difference in an area that has been hard to do something about?
Well, there's no vaccine on the market today, and there's a strong need in this field. And the fact that Moderna is so late in this game is actually super exciting, and I think it will actually open the door for us, ExpreS2ion and Evaxion in this field going onward. And then I still want to maintain that the Moderna approach based on messenger RNA vaccines, who knows about the duration of the effect of their vaccine approach. We come with recombinant protein approach, where we will expect also a long-term duration, but of course that remains to be seen over the years. The other projects that have been going on which have failed, that's a risk of the game, but it tells me that big pharma have an interest in this, and that's actually is exciting when you look at this from the perspective of us having the lead CMV candidate and going into partnering discussions later in the year. But it's further down the road, of course.
And there's a question also, what does Evaxion bring to the table? And I think you explained that a little bit, you know. Is that why you're also excited, their AI platform to kind of very fast research different genes that might be of interest? Is that one of your optimism coming from? Or
before Expression can do what we are experts in, making the active ingredient using our proprietary S2 system, it's always good to look into the design of the antigen. How is the protein going to look like? What are the gene sequences? And these gene sequences you can best design using a bioinformatics platform. And that's where Evaxion come into play. So it's very complementary actually to what we do. And we will have that in interaction with Evaxion. I should say, actually, by the way, it's actually a neighbor company in the DTU Science Park where we are located here north of Copenhagen. They're literally only 5 minutes walk away from the company. So it's very good for collaboration, actually, that we can interact, especially here in the early phase where we want to design the right construct so Expression can make the right candidate basically for the vaccine.
And then there's a question, maybe you elaborated a little about 50-50 financing and so on, and you also wrote that it was within your budget. Is that because it's in the exploration phase that's possible, because it's not moving into some phases? Is that why it's that is possible? Because normally if you go to a preclinical, it would need some capital. Is that how we should understand it?
That is actually correct. It is a discovery collaboration, and the first couple of years we will use our efforts and be a handful of people from each side looking at this, and it is actually within what we do, and we can contain it within other projects that we're working on. So once we have selected a CMV candidate in 2025, we have to consider other validation and preclinical trials. Maybe we have to outsource some preclinical testing, and going further down the road, having a clinical CMV candidate, we will of course need also to outsource the clinical testing of that, and then it becomes expensive. But that's really later in the second half of this decade.
And a little bit, how will you know, biotech is all about news flow. How will, in an exploration phase, will there be some data out? Will you comment on it, or do we need to get into 24, 25 before you might comment on it and say we are now pretty sure about a candidate or something like that?
Well, I'll definitely use my platforms with respect to our shareholders to communicate on where we are with this project. I think that for me, the biggest announcement will be the selection of the CMV candidate, the outcome of this project, of course. But during the work, there will be several milestones. If we want to make big splash announcements, that can be discussed because it is research.
And then there's a question here: is the COVID-19 timeline still early 23? You mentioned that, and the reason why I'm asking, we actually got a news flow out from Danish news media that a lot of Danish people, because it's a Danish vaccine, has actually signed up for getting it. I also saw a picture of you getting a stab in the arm. So is that timeline still holding? And is it good news that a lot of people are signing up for, you know, doing the vaccine? You know, that is always the problem and can delay something.
Yes, it's correct. I couldn't help myself enrolling in this phase 3 trial, and I had a shot here the previous week. I don't know if it's ABNCoV2 or if a messenger RNA vaccine from Pfizer, BioNTech. It's a double-blind controlled study, so neither me nor the doctor or nurses know what the vaccine is actually that I'm I've been shot with. But it is under enrollment still, I believe. But then again, I also heard a few weeks ago, in Denmark at least, the study had already been fully enrolled. So I'm not sure myself about where this is. But again, according to Bavarian Nordic, it's on track, and we'll get some headline results in the beginning of 2023.
Thank you, Ben, for answering the question and taking us through your company. Hi, and welcome back from this short break. Today we are going into the hearing industry, primarily the OTC industry, together with Steen Thygesen. We will make a short notice here that you are currently conducting a capital raise. So if people want more information and much more detailed information, which can be necessary here, they can go to your investor website, download the prospectus, and get all the information there. But for now, Steen, I will hand the word over to you.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for everyone who is listening in today. And you're absolutely right, Kasper. We're in the middle of a rights issue, and today is the second last day of the subscription period. So this growth capital, you can say, days are actually very, very much very timely for us. It's a good opportunity to revisit our growth story and look at in connection with what we are seeking to raise funding for in this period. So my name is Steen Thygesen. I'm the CEO of Audientes, and as you may know us already, we are a technology company based out of Denmark, out of Copenhagen, and we're focusing on creating a new type of hearing aids that are both affordable and accessible for people in the very people-rich countries around the world. And we have basically been on a really good journey since we got founded in 2014. We have been, of course, through the usual process of attracting initial funding, developing prototypes, testing in the market. And then we went public back in 2020. So we raised funding to basically complete the product development, launch the product in the market in India, our initial launch market, and then starting to manufacture in basically mass market, for mass market purposes earlier this year. So we have been in the market selling the product in India since really the beginning of second quarter. That was when we started shipping units at volume into the market and into the channels. So we are today at a very exciting time. We are about to launch our new consumer appliance that is an advanced hearable. Of course, I will cover both later, but that's the stage where we are at today. We have a good presence in India with many retail partners and many outlets that we're working on making productive. And of course, as we are looking out more broadly the coming years, Asia, of course, as a region, has got a lot of potential in store for Audientes. That has been our focus until now at a very, you can say, significant amount. The situation today in Audientes, of course, is that we are deriving our initial revenue this year. We have set out an expected range between 3.5 to 5 million here, and we're still continuing to invest in the business. So this year we will derive a EBITDA loss that is quite, I would say, it's a bit smaller than we had expected earlier in the year, but we've also changed how we're investing in the business because of how the times have developed and the need for being really prudent and focused on what we are investing money into. Now, just tapping into the story, of course, around our market opportunity. Why are we focused on India? Well, India is part of this very large group of people-rich countries in that part of the world where around 60% of the world's hearing impaired people are actually based. So people with disabling hearing loss needing solutions for their hearing loss in order to basically function on a day-to-day basis very well. And the situation is, of course, in the industry, as we have talked about many times, we have 3 very large Danish hearing aid companies doing amazing products. They are only selling together with other actors in the industry around 17 million devices per year. So if you imagine that most people do need 2 hearing aids to hear kind of well, which is called binaural hearing loss, it's typically you have a hearing loss on both ears. There's only maybe around 8 to 9 million people every year that gets a new hearing device. And if you look at the projections for how hearing loss is going to increase from around 500 million people today to around 700 million people in the year 2050, you can see there is a huge gap here, and the industry is not going to catch up if it continues to do what it does today. And that is what we have set out to help solve, basically bringing out solutions in quantities to these markets that are, you can say, taking the hearing aid concept and sort of twisting it around a bit, adding some smartness also to the less costly products in the field. So basically, cost is of course a big issue for why people do not get a quality hearing aid, but it's also the access to experts. There's very few experts in many countries, like in India, there's 2,000 hearing experts registered in the local organization for around 1.3 billion people. So maybe like 1 out of 500,000 people, you can say, has an opportunity to get in contact with a hearing expert. And that's not a lot. So what we need to do is to bring out some solutions that can help address hearing loss, even though you're not close to a hearing expert. So what we have done in Audientes, we have digitized the entire complex process of having a hearing aid, you can say, need identified, having the hearing test conducted, having the hearing aid measured out and fitted and repeatedly fine-tuned as the person uses it. So we have digitized that and built it into one standalone device that we can essentially offer to people anywhere around the world, and they can easily get up and running even without a smartphone. It's not required in our solution. But as I picture here, Ven is the product we are selling today in India. It is a binaural hearing aid. It looks like a headset. So we have taken away the stigma that typically is associated with hearing aids. So now you're looking at something that looks like more like a consumer device. But it has the same hallmark features as classic hearing aids in good quality. So it's using the pure tone audiometry for carrying out the hearing test. It's fitting the amplification, the required lift up of frequencies using an algorithm called NAL-NL2. It's the professional one used by leading hearing aid manufacturers around the world, and has got a quality sound reproduction with really, you can say, several listening programs where you can go in and select the right program. And it has all the elements of a good Bluetooth headset and of course built-in rechargeable battery. So for most people, this solution is priced around $300 to $350 in the consumer markets. It may retail for, of course, various prices around the markets, but that's around where it is pegged. So a person will get a really good solution for an affordable price. That is what this solution is about. And it comes with this self-fitting kind of assisted fitting solution whereby a person can run the built-in hearing test and get up and running in a matter of 5 to 6 minutes with a hearing aid that is actually fitted to the person's hearing. That's what we have introduced in India. We've also introduced other features in the Indian market whereby hearing experts can also go in and program values into the device themselves if they feel there's a person who has a quite unique hearing profile and they want to be in control of that. That's something we have learned from our channels there, that was basically a requirement for kind of getting embedded in the market. So where are we today in this market? Because we know that in these times, a lot of uncertainty, people are being pressed on what they can actually afford to buy of products. Now, hearing aids has got a reputation for being very inelastic in terms of, you can say, do people buy it even in times of hardship? And many people believe that's the case, but we can see from the industry with the different adjustments that has come out, that is not the case. People are looking for less costly alternatives. So we think when we look at the market, solutions like ours that are priced at a much lower, you can say, level than other products is something that people has got more opportunities now to acquire than they maybe have had before, because they are in a position to find a cost-effective solution that can help them here and now. Now, we are positioned, you can say, across the spectrum of several significant markets. One, of course, is traditional hearing aids, as we are showing here. The other one is at the outer extreme, hearables like the AirPods and other products where you can get some kind of world sound through. But in the sort of between those extremes, there is quite a few other sub-segments, including connected hearing aids that are just like ours, equipped with a smart app that can do different things. There's also hearables, kind of assistive hearables or advanced hearables that can also help people who are beginning to have hearing loss. Maybe you can say treat something earlier before it becomes a real issue, but help people to hear better in certain situations. This, you can say, is where our product portfolio is being positioned now. We are essentially covering several of these segments with a device, you can say, that has got a lot of capabilities in its own right. But our growth strategy, if we come back to that in this seminar, this really has been anchored on three kind of major strands. One is distribution, local partners and strategic partnerships that we see being more broadly going across more than one country. Then, of course, there's the product portfolio. We have gone from having one product in India to now launching a new product we're going to take into other markets, including what we call non-regulated markets. And then internationalization. We are in India today. We're going into new markets around the world with our new offerings and, of course, future developments as well. In terms of our business model and how we go to market, I mean, Audientes is based on you can say the capabilities of being able to create good consumer devices and good medical devices. That is what we are aiming at doing. So how we're going to expand the business is, of course, partly through being able to address more markets, but it's also being able to sell through more channels. So today we have been really developing the professional hearing aid channel in India. We've learned a lot about that, how it works, what their requirements are. It's a very, I would say, demanding channel. They know what products are able to do, but for us, it has been important to validate our solution in that channel. But right now we are branching into other channels in the Indian market, including pharmacists. We're looking at opticians and telecom and electronic stores, and we're looking at also the different other channels that are in the government sphere, like hospitals and for that sake also private hospitals, plus the NGO space. So NGOs are in India typically funded by different organizations where they get the means to purchase devices and give them to people who needs it. And because our solution, again, has got the hallmarks of something that is easy to use and affordable, we are looking at getting into those channels, and it's going pretty well, actually. We are soon going to talk more about that. But online, of course, has been something we have been looking at from the outset. We have been trying online in India and found out that right now the market in India is not super ripe for that as it concerns our solution. So we are investing more in the B2B channel right now, but now we're going into other markets. We are, you can say, revitalizing our e-commerce platform and launching it both on international kind of Amazon e-tailers, but also our own online store in Europe in the beginning of next year. So coming back to the product portfolio, obviously having one product in the market has been a fantastic learning exercise for us. We have really now been able to improve the product throughout, you can say, since we launched it, which is not that long ago, but we have made several software upgrades that has been delivered to the market over the year. So basically we are now on a good roll there. We've got a good solution addressing our key segments. But now we're introducing essentially what is a variant of you can say our hearing aid device. It's a product called Companion, and Companion is not a regulated product. It's a consumer electronics device that is really pegged in the area where you can say people are pre a hearing aid. So basically beginning challenges to listen in certain connections, certain conversations, and so on. And for example, in front of the television at home or when listening to music and so on. And this is a great solution for that segment. And it's a much larger segment in its own right, and because it is products that are sold through different channels. So if you compare them then and Companion next to each other, Companion is definitely in the consumer electronics space. We call it a situational hearing device in the advanced hearables category. So it has a lot of the hallmarks of Ven technology-wise, software-wise, but it is built to really address a different set of needs and different channels as well. So more consumer electronic stores, more pharmacies, more opticians, more e-tailers, we think, outside the Indian market. And so we're quite upbeat about now being able to put that in, and we're actually going to start seeing it being marketed in countries not far from our own borders here in Denmark, and of course in the Nordic countries as well. So, but just explaining further, so building on our presence in India, we of course, there's many countries around India where what we have today is actually quite good fit. So we're looking at broadening our reach into neighboring countries like Nepal, Bangladesh, and even Sri Lanka and so on, but basically countries where there is significant trade with India, of course. But we're also looking further out east there's many countries in the southern Eastern Asian area that are really, you can say, a good fit for our solutions. Plus countries like Japan and China, of course, are areas where we are looking and will be continuing to spend effort on that. But otherwise, the big sort of push for the companion device is in the European and American markets, because it's a product that we believe from our learning so far should have a really good audience there. And of course, we will then over time introduce hearing aid devices in those markets. Again, you know, we when we're looking at countries like India, which actually has a quite high growth in the gross national produce every year, the economy is actually also growing quite rapidly. So India is not really right now subject to many of the hardships and challenges that we are sort of seeing and witnessing in our own parts of the world. But I think in our parts of the world, it will give rise to some changed purchase behavior in more expensive solutions, and that's where we believe that our solution, being cost effective, a few $100s, can actually fit in quite nicely in those markets. Of course, we will learn a lot more about that next year. But otherwise, we have, as part of our rights issue and the prospectus that has been published, we have set out some new goals and objectives for the coming years. And our aim is really to grow on an annual basis between 50 to 60%. And why is that the case? Well, it is because we are a growth business. We are kind of new in the market this year. We've learned a lot. Now we are using all those learnings to introduce a new product, and we're going to do more with what we already have in the market. So we will be growing the distribution and sales in India. We'll be working on getting our existing sales points effective and brought up, you can say, to really being able to sell every month a good few devices. And then we're going to expand into other countries and start doing the same, finding local partners that can handle the product and who are excited about supporting that. That is really what we have in store for next year. So bringing Companion out into new markets and selling event in India is of course what we are really focusing on. Next year, though, is also an important, you can say, part of our journey to getting the ISO 13485 certification that allows us to make medical devices, which is a key for the future of Audientes as we are moving into European markets with kind of a regulated product offering. And for that sake, in the US as well, FDA is part of our roadmap. We will be launching in 2024 an OTC hearing aid device into that new market. And again, that requires all these quality processes that you can actually document and you can show that you are in compliance. So for us, that is a key part of this dual track, regulated products and non-regulated products. But otherwise, the coming years will see Audientes being kind of broadening where we are, who we work with, in what countries. And then, of course, the product portfolio is also going to increase as we move forward. We are not, you can say, we're not set with this design we have today, the neckband design. That's not what we're going to be focusing on forever. But right now, it's our entry into the market. And then we are looking at already now what will come beyond that. Now, this slide happens to be in Danish. We have this rights issue that are currently running. It is the memorandum, the prospectus is actually available in English, so everyone can read for themselves. But essentially, it is it's a unit-based concept where we offer 2 shares and 1 warrant as part of a unit. And this emission is actually closing tomorrow evening. So if anyone is interested and wants to join in on this, you can say, opportunity, then I think it's about the right time now to do something about it. I would say Nordnet has actually stopped their subscription period. So it is now with the banks. And if one wants to act, they have to sort of reach out to their usual banking partner and deal with that. As I said, just really showing it here very simply graphically, but 1 unit include 2 shares, 1 warrant, and they are priced at 1.5 Danish kroner per unit, which is of course 75 øre per aktie. And I think that is a quite interesting price now in the market. And the warrants are being acquired without having to pay a fee from those. warrants will be able to be utilized in a period, in a window from the 27th of March 23 until the 13th of April. And you can say the price for utilization has already been set with 70% of this volume weighted average price in the spot stock market 10 days prior to 2 days before the period actually is opening up. So this is kind of what I wanted to mention, since we are at a point where now one needs to move if one wants to be part of this. So just wrapping up here and saying the key reason for why I believe Audientes is a really interesting investment in this coming years is that we are addressing this really untapped and growing market opportunity that is born out of the need for affordable and accessible solutions at a time where hearing loss is growing rapidly around the world. So we have this opportunity to come in and help disrupt and create something new in an industry that is very comfortable in terms of its margins and how it goes to market. So I hope that we will get this opportunity and really show that in the coming years as we take the concept from India to the rest of the world. And this, you can say, born out of the fact that we have both regulated and non-regulated products in our portfolio already now, which means we have more than one leg to stand on as a business. We can diversify into different markets, different channels. And of course, we do a lot in software, which is what we have now shown as we are taking the device and now launching it into a new market space. So that's, with those words, I just wanted to say thank you very much for listening in. I hope it was interesting, and I'm looking forward to the questions that undoubtedly will come here. Thank you.
Yeah, and just to make it short, we have made 2 presentations you can watch on your website or on DK, where we go much thorough through this process. But Steen, the first question here, what is the big difference between Ven and Companion? I know the markets, but product-wise, what is the big difference there?
Yeah, so in the Indian market, Ven as a hearing aid can deliver a quite high sound pressure, basically to correct towards severe hearing loss. And Companion is a product that is not aimed at correcting hearing loss, but it's aimed at helping people who has, you can say, starting to not being able to hear everything that is going on. So basically with a more, you can say, moderate type of amplification, but able to help people from a different point of view. So it is not a hearing aid, but it is a advanced hearable, which means that it has this combination of being able to enjoy it as a good headset, but also to enjoy it as essentially as a sound amplifier device. We're using some of the same testing solution where we are running a test to identify how does the person's hearing look like, so we can actually deliver a sound experience that is calibrated to the individual's hearing profile. That's what we do.
So actually, hardware-wise, there's not much difference, but it's on the software side, as I should understand it, and how it gets fitted to people a little bit more, and can go up to the high amplification, which is can somehow be regulated. So that is how to understand it, and so it's the software and the software, how people will use it. That is
we have simplified you can say the experience. So people don't experience it as a clinical device, but more as an appliance that I can set it up. It's adapted to my hearing profile, and then I can essentially enjoy it, and I can hear better than I could before. So.
And then there's a question here. You are now moving into the consumer electronics market. Now you're up against the headset business, who has sound amplifications, muting, connecting also to TVs. It's much larger player and therefore much more competitive. So how are you going to play in that field?
Well, I think the channels that we're looking at putting a Companion into initially are channels that are used to handle hearing related products. So basically there's a whole range of companies that are helping people buy accessories for different purposes. So we think this is a great accessory for anyone that is in that space and looking for a solution. Now, of course, we'll be working on getting into other channels, but we are not going to go head to head, obviously, with Apple and all the other players. They are in the mainstream consumer channels. We are not looking to be there. Over time, we'll see if we end up there. but we're looking for different other pockets of the market with this solution.
Yeah. So if I should understand it, you will be marketing maybe as something you can hear TV with when you are hearing impaired. I know there's a lot of accessories you can do that, and not as a headset that also have all the other.
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. Then there's a question here. Will you have any partnerships to help you launch on the US market? It's a large and it's a large market that, of course, can be hard for small companies to get into.
Yes. Yeah. We are not going to, you can say, set up subsidiary and own distribution in all these different countries. So absolutely, we are looking for partners that are placed in the right areas in the market, that has existing relationships with retailers and so on, and we're gonna you can say develop those and have them becoming a key part in how we go to market.
And is that both in the US and also in the Europe? I guess you're also going into Europe soon, and I guess it's not that much easier. Europe is also a big region.
In each country there is, you can say, a group of companies that are servicing this field. And all of them, most of them are actually also selling B2C, so they're selling directly to end users. One of the things that is known is that when people have hearing challenges, they research about it, and they research and they find different solutions. So our solution, of course, is very much you can say, DIY solution. You can pick it up, you can put it on and use it from the outset. So it doesn't require a lot. It is almost like going into, you can say, an optician chain and buying a pair of good reading glasses that doesn't need to be adjusted anyway. So you can really get up and running quickly. So that instant gratification is what we are really looking at with this solution. And
thank you, Steen. I think the time unfortunately had run out, so I will leave you on those words.
Yes, thank you very much. Have a good.
Hi, and everybody, and welcome back from the break. Now we'll be joined by Impero, software as a service in the compliance industry, both by the CEO and CFO. Of course, you had an adjustment to 22. We were looking into 23 here, so I guess we will also cover that area, but I guess you will also cover the announcement yesterday on the adjustment of the guidance. But for now, I will hand the word over to you, Rikke.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation. Together with me, I've got Morten, our CFO, and I'm Rikke, the CEO of Impero, and we're very pleased to give this presentation on our journey, telling you a little bit about what we do, who we do it for and with, and where we're heading. Before we dive into too many details, we will also touch upon, as you just mentioned, Michael, our adjusted guidance that we sent out yesterday. So if we could maybe see the slides, please. Otherwise, I'll just start out by giving a brief introduction to Impero. I see something where it just says Morten. And
maybe it's because we're in presentation mode.
Yeah. The slides are up, so we will tell you which slide it is. I don't know whether you can see them.
Sorry, Michael.
Yeah, no problem.
Super fast. We will just tell you a little bit about Impero. We were founded back in late 2013 by two ex-Deloitte consultants who had seen a need with their customers to help them manage all their internal control activities. So that was where it all started back in late 2013. They developed the first internal controls platform with 3 customers, and we have, of course, expanded that pretty much since back then. We listed on Nasdaq First North in April 21, and we're happy to tell you a little bit about the progress that we're seeing here. What we do is that we actually help increase trust and transparency. We help customers manage their inherent desire to either become or stay compliant. And we do that via a business-to-business software as a service platform that I will tell you a little bit more about in a moment. Last but not least, our current focus is on Northwestern Europe. We see a high need for compliance in these areas, or it's driven by the market where compliance is a thing. but there are so many more opportunities, and we will also tell you a little bit more about the market opportunities outside of Northwestern Europe as we move forward. But first, if you could maybe give us a slide on the updated guidance for 2022.
It's on.
Thank you. We've seen a delay in the decision making, and we've also reported on this earlier on, but we have been confident that we could make it within the original guidance range. Very lately, as in yesterday, we've seen a few large deals move into next year, meaning that we don't see it realistic to actually get within the former range. So we've come up with a new range for ARR, and to be totally transparent, we've told where are we right now. We are at 23.3 million Danish kroner in ARR. So anything from there we will add, and we see that there's an opportunity to go up to approximately 25 million Danish kroner within the next few weeks. At the same time, we've also adjusted our EBITDA guidance. We were telling in the Q3 report that we were pretty cautious while spending our money, and we also did an adjustment to the organization to make sure that we had enough gas to run the Impero vehicle forward. And we come out with an adjustment to the EBITDA guidance going earlier on from -20 to -18 million Danish kroner, and now it's -18 to -17 million Danish kroner. That was, of course, extremely unfortunate for us to have to come out with this message. But that being said, when we knew it, we came to the market, we told the story, and now we're just here to try and close the year in the best possible way, and then to move forward into 2023. I'm pretty sure that we're going to have a few questions to this when we get to the end of the presentation, so let's move forward from here. The Impero platform, just to give you a brief idea of what it is we do. We help companies identify, document, and mitigate their risks. So whether it's operational risks, it's strategic risks, process risks, etc., you have the opportunity to, on a global level or company level, as well as local level, to work with your risk management in Impero. You also have the opportunity to do all the mitigating actions, and then of course also to report and document that you've done it. As they say in the world of internal controls, if it isn't documented, it's not done. So we work with the companies on automating the recurring processes and controls that they have in their organizations, making sure that they have really strong reporting on what they're doing, and also that it's documented so that they can be audited. This goes for tax, finance, ESG, other areas where you have auditors coming in, looking at your internal control setup to create confidence that you're actually doing the things that you say you will do or that you say you do. So that's a very short version of the Impero platform. It's super easy to use, and actually many of our users, they don't even know they're in a new platform, but also for the administrators, it's really easy. It's very scalable across compliance domains, across geographies. So we often see that we start small. It could be within a limited compliance domain, or it could be within a limited geography. And then we see the use of Impero growing, and we call that our land and expand strategy, and I'll come back to that briefly. It's very easy for the companies to adopt, and it's becoming increasingly interoperable. So we see Impero as a kind of a piece in a puzzle of a bigger compliance ecosystem where we have data coming in from ERP systems. We do control based on data analysis, and we also make sure that we integrate with reporting tools so that it's really easy for the companies to provide the right reporting for their board of directors, audit committees, management teams, etc. Moving ahead to our customers and who they are, that's often pretty large companies. So we see companies here like the Volkswagen Group or Siemens, Maersk, etc. It's also smaller companies. It's across different industries. It's across many geographies where we see this need for supporting your compliance activities. We work with partners, and those are often big four companies like Deloitte, KPMG, PwC, etc. But recently also, as announced earlier on, Massage in Germany, where we're working with them to be even more present in the mid-market in Germany. And fortunately, we have seen some good results also from that latter partnership. Looking at the market we're targeting, well, we're currently primarily in Northwestern Europe. We do have customers elsewhere, but that's more like 5 or so in the US and a bit here and there. So we're primarily focusing on tax and finance in Northwestern Europe. It's really important for us to work in countries where compliance is important. So that would often be the companies that you would see scoring pretty high at the anti-corruption or anti-bribery indexes. Northwestern Europe is a good example of that. So is, if we look a little bit into the future, countries like North America, Singapore, Australia, and Japan. Also, we're primarily working with companies that has a certain degree of complexity, and that can be even smaller companies working in highly regulated industries, such as the financial industry, or the insurance industry, for instance, or it's larger companies like the Volkswagen Group, where they need to have a global setup to manage all the risks related to their tax environment. That is a pretty large setup, to be honest. And these different types of customers in the geographies where they value compliance are the ones that we most often work with, and that we're targeting also going forward. What we see is a fast-growing market, so the numbers say approximately 13% year over year, and I believe that we've all experienced that compliance is here to stay, and we will most likely see it increase even further going forward. And that is the market that we are actually targeting as we go forward. A quick word on our land and expand strategies before we move into the numbers. We have 3 pillars that we use as our sales channels. So one is our collaboration partners, and those, as I already mentioned, are often the big 4 companies or the slightly smaller but still in the big 10 global auditing firms. And we use them as kind of a blue stamp going into a new market. We have them target the first customers, and fortunately they keep on working with us. They see that they get some large projects, they get an opportunity to stand out from competition because they come to the market with a cost-efficient and really easy to use, really scalable tool that the companies can use in many other areas than just within that specific first project that the partner might actually be talking to. They give us an access to the market, and they also come with the knowledge about the local as well as global compliance requirements that we couldn't necessarily be on top of across different markets. Along with that, we also have our direct sales. And here we've invested heavily in marketing over the past year, and we've built a team, and we can now see the fruit from those investments in terms of being able to generate leads that we can work on with our own sales team. That's a really interesting channel for us too going forward. And as we also see on the numbers here, it actually brings in quite a lot of the revenue. So these are the historical numbers looking back, saying, okay, where does the revenue come from? And you see 38% from the partner channel and the rest from our direct channels. The last pillar here is the uplift channel, which is driven by our customer success team, and that's all around the expansion. We see our customers expand the use of Impero into new domains, new geographies, as already mentioned, and we work with them closely to support them in bringing Impero into relevance in more areas. By the end of Q3, we saw an uplift of 17%, And as we also maintain, also due to, of course, an excellent platform, but also great work from our colleagues, a low churn of approximately 4%, we see a net revenue retention rate of 113 by the end of the third quarter this year. So that was a quick glance at the sales channels, the market we're heading in, and the customers and partners we're working with, as well as the platform itself. And with those words, I'll leave it to you, Morten, to give us a bit of insights on the SaaS metrics.
Thank you, Rikke. And with the risk of repeating a bit of what Rikke just said, then we here show our SaaS metrics. We have by end Q3 delivered 39% ARR growth. And we do that with selling to our customers. We see that comparing to 12 months ago, we have managed to increase the average revenue per customer from 148,000 to 165,000. So a really nice development. And it's not just because we're bringing larger customers on board. No, it's also due to the fact that our existing customers are buying more from Impero or adding additional users. We see that with the uplift where we're seeing existing customers buying 17% more than they did a year ago, and on the rolling 12 months basis, as well as keeping a low churn over the 12 months period, which gives us the net revenue retention that Rikke also just talked to. Looking at the channel split, we here show it for Q3. So what we have managed is actually there's almost a 50-50 split between the new revenue coming from partners and coming from our own channel. That's also what we have seen throughout the year, and we're pleased with that development. So we really appreciate working together with the partners. It's very important for us, but it's also important for us that we manage to be successful on generating the business ourselves, and that way also supporting some of the partners. With the market split, we can see that in Q3, it was primarily in other parts of the world besides our two main markets, Denmark and DACH. That's of course very positive to see that there's also activities outside of these regions. Some of it is though related to Greenland, but we've also a new customer in Singapore, which is very interesting to us. Going to the next slide, we see the waterfall here with where we started the year. Or where we started this 12-month period. We started with ARR of north of 15 million. We have had churn of 600,000 Danish kroner and have had uplift of 2.6 million. And on top of that, we have added customers for 4 million. If we look at the chart in the lower right corner, we can see that the growth, and we also see that Q4 is an important quarter to Impero. That's where we close a good part of the new ARR. We also do that this year, and as we referred to, or Rikke referred to before, with our updated guidance, then we're currently also at a level where we have closed already quite some business, and with the aim and expectations also to close more before we turn into 2023. And if we look at the financial figures, I won't talk a lot to that, but we see good development in our reported revenue. The way we do it is that we take, when we do a new sell, then we include 1/12 of that revenue on an ongoing basis. So the ARR that we close will over time turn into become revenue, but there is a delay due to the way that we recognize the revenue. We have a very nice gross profit. It's 96%. It's up quite a bit from last year, which is mainly due to re-invoicing an implementation project last year. So the 95 to 96% is the level where we would be and usually would be, and is also our aim going forward. Other external expenses and staff cost has grown these 40 to 46%, and in line with the development we have seen, and with the recent kind of a bit more cautious approach to our cost, we'll of course not see that significant growth going forward. But as I also mentioned, we are investing in our commercial vehicle with building a marketing team and also with focus on growing sales. As we are a growth company that will continue to grow. But of course, this is coming from the level where we got listed on Nasdaq First North in April last year. The last slide I have here before we go to the Q&A is just kind of stating that we completed the capital increase. We did a minor increase where we raised 7 million in a private placement here at the end of November. We were very pleased to see that both current and new investors had the confidence in the company to invest, and we have both an existing investors like Colin AS and Bank Invest joining us in this capital or this round of the private placement, but also a new investor like Claus Holse, and we also had a few people from the board investing, including the chairman. And of course, with this increase, we are in a very good position to continue to invest in accelerating our growth. And we have a strong position going into 2023, and with the securing the capital position for at least the next calendar year, but probably also longer than that. So that was the presentation.
The presentation. Great. Let's go through some questions. I guess one from my side, you know, you are indicating it's a delaying. So do you expect to pick that business up in 23? And secondly, you know, you had, and that was your last comment, you know, the announcement that you are financed to keep your growth plans in 23 with this capital raise. And is that still the case despite this, you might say, lower starting point for 23?
Let's start with the first part of your question and say it's completely right that we have seen these few deals being delayed, and we do, of course, work on picking those up, as does the customers, in the new year. We haven't guided, to come to you, the second part of your question, we haven't guided for 23, and we're not guiding yet for 23, as we also wrote yesterday. I think everybody has become a bit wiser during this year and see that there are some new trends out there about how do we maybe revise our investments, not on our side necessarily, but within the big companies where there are some geopolitical and macro themes that are not really within our control. Yeah, exactly. That of course we are with our board looking into exactly what are we going to say about next year, and as soon as we're ready with that, we will of course tell the market.
But that also kind of points to the importance of building a strong pipeline, which is also why we have invested a lot on the commercial side, and we're also seeing the benefits from that. So we believe we're in a good position. And as you're also indicating, Michael, none of the customers we haven't cancelled, or the customers have not cancelled the dialogues. So we're still in a good position to be able to close these deals in 2023.
And there's a question here.
Part of your question.
Yeah, the second part. Yeah, let's take that.
Yes. Yeah. We do. There are no changes to the fact that we will that we have sufficient cash to manage through 2023. So this adjustment to the guidance does not change anything to that.
Perfect. There's a question here. What differs on the German market? You touch upon it, macro, geopolitical, compared to last year, and how are the market conditions in other markets? Is it isolated to the DACH region, or is that also widespread that there is some postponement in the process?
I think it is wider spread, but looking at our focus today, we are mainly in the northwestern part of Europe, and much of our focus is currently on Denmark and on DACH. So that's really where, I mean, I shouldn't be the one who tells about huge global development in the industry, but let's just say that for Germany, I think Denmark, we were pretty fast on figuring out how we would go about energy supplies and stuff. And maybe with some of the customers that we have in Germany, a lot of them being industrial companies, they've had during COVID issues with their supply chain, getting the right stuff in place to actually build their cars or build whatever machines they are providing to paper industry or whatever. And at the same time, they have so many open ends on the energy supply. So there might be things that move up the ladder in terms of priority that you will have to focus on first, and then other things must have to wait, even if that is important too. And even if they do want to do this, there might be priorities from the top management that says, we need to get this in place first. If we cannot manufacture our cars, then we have a bigger problem. So I think it's just about priorities, and eventually we will come around. So it's more about, we see they have some processes where we often go into a procurement board, for instance, and that board might need to talk about what new vendors should we find in Europe to have better control over our supply chain, and then that beats other processes. So it's things being delayed. I don't believe that it is something that we will see go away right away, but then it talks to what Morten says. It's about us building a really solid pipeline where we have the coverage to make sure that we can actually grow the way we want.
And then there's a question here on the 23 guidance. So I guess I know your answer, but do you aim be a bit profitable already in the second half of 23?
Yeah, that's we will of course comment on when we come out with the guidance for 2023.
So I guess right. And then do you conduct special activities in order to keep existing customers excited and grow existing customers? Sometimes in where there's uncertainty, where you're already in, where the decision has been taken, it's easier to grow that than to try and get the final signature on a contract. So some elaboration on your thinking going into 23, whether you should put a little bit more focus on that, and that will help you maybe grow a little bit more than would be possible.
We do spend quite a lot of resources on that particular item, and that also, I believe, shows in our low churn. It is really important for us to have happy customers that continues to expand their use of Impero, and we do use sales resources as well as customer success resources and product resources in making sure that this happens. And I'm pretty confident that we will see many more positive developments in this area going forward.
Thank you.
Yes, so next company on our virtual growth seminar today is BoMill, a Swedish first listed company. And with me today, I have the CEO, Andreas Jeppsson, and the Chief Product Manager, Hansi Biedermann. Welcome, both of you. And for the audience, please post your questions, and I will forward them to the management. Yes, I hand over the word to you, Andreas and Hansi. Welcome.
Many thanks. So my name is Andreas Jeppsson, so I'm the CEO of BoMill. So with me here today, I have Hansi Biedermann, our product manager. We are living in challenging times where food security and the need to produce healthier food in a sustainable way are of the highest importance. We have an increasing population globally. All the available land, arable land, is already in use, and the grain value chain is inefficient with misuse and losses of grain. On top of this, we have an unfortunate situation here in Europe with an ongoing war that is causing chaos in the global grain trade. With that said, using what is growing in our fields will be more and more important in the future. I would say even crucial. If you look out over a field of grains, by the eye, they all look the same, but in fact, there are big differences. If you look at the picture here to the right, you can see a spike full of kernels, which are, again, by the eye or visually, they look identically. However, even if they are genetically coming from the same seed kernel and grown in the exact same conditions, there are significant differences between each and every kernel on the same spike. A typical example of such difference is the protein content. If you look at the available technology today, quality variations are not considered of, for example, protein content, and often grain batches are misused or they are even wasted. To compensate for this, you need to grow or increase the production of grains. Sorting grain is not something that has been going on for quite a while. And if you do it in an industrial scale, it has been done basically in a similar way for the last 50 or 60 years. And the method that has been done or used is based upon physical differences. However, since the last 30 years or so, there was the introduction of more advanced equipment, what they call optical sorting equipment or color sorters, where also visual differences are considered. However, if you look at the industrial scale, neither of the existing sorting practices can measure and main quality parameters that is required by the grain and the food industry today. Again, typically is protein content or also removing the toxic kernels. But by sorting grain kernels individually on its inner properties, not on what you can see on the outside, but what's actually on the inside, you can use the BoMill technology, and we are sure that it will revolutionize the grain industry globally. So look at the value proposition of BoMill. So BoMill will improve the efficiency of the grain value chain by optimizing the quality and help the grain processors to meet the increasing demand of the food industry. This is especially important from a sustainability standpoint. To improve the profitability of the grain stakeholders by increasing the value of previously overlooked grain batches and partially saving those batches of grain that normally are discarded. Support sustainable farming practices and local production, ensuring what is produced is also used for what it's best suited for. By doing all this, we will meet the emerging consumer trends for healthier product and food safety. With that, I will leave over more technical details about technology to Hansi.
Thank you, Andreas. I will now take you on a short tour through our solution for the future of agriculture. The BoMill solution builds on a three-step process: singulation, detection, and ejection. The first step aims to singulate each kernel to allow for an accurate measurement. For the second step, we use near-infrared light that we shine through the kernel. And the fact that we shine it through the kernel is very important. The light that has passed through the kernel is then measured and used to predict the inner property or quality of the kernel. We are the only ones who are currently doing this, and due to patent protection, the only ones that are allowed to do this. In the third and final step, the kernel will either get ejected with unprecedented accuracy or pass straight through the machine, effectively creating two quality fractions. Simple maybe, but in order to reach industrial capacity, you need to be able to sort over 100,000 kernels per second. That is just shy of 500 million kernels per hour. Now, let's roll back to what Andreas said. Each kernel is different, even coming from the same spike. When we take a closer look, we see that there are still a lot of grain within the batch that meet the criteria for malting. So in this case, we have a batch or a silo of grain that's out of specification for malting. And with our technology, when we run it through the machine, we now have all kernels lined up according to protein content and can simply choose a threshold at which to segregate this barley. Et voila. We have now recovered 80% of what was previously graded as feed. Now, this is only one example. These red grains shown in the distribution could just as well have been toxic grains.
So, sorry, Hansi, there's some noise on the line. Is it, do you have some paper scratching or?
Yeah, it could be.
It could be the paper because you hear it very much on our side.
Yeah, sorry for that.
No, it's all right.
So, and there are numerous more opportunities to be addressed throughout the grain value chain. Key here is focus. Focus on a few segments and master them really well. Currently, the target is set on malting businesses in Latin America and flour milling in Europe. Now you may wonder, why now? What has changed compared to the past for BoMill? Well, two things. The industry strive for sustainability, increased regulations on fertilizer and pesticides that introduce new challenges in farming, carbon footprint, meaning how much land was used to produce the food, something previously only a headache for the farmer, but now also for the end producer. But I said two, right? So what's the second one? Here you have it. BoMill Insight, the next generation of grain quality sorting. Building on our proven expertise in single kernel sorting and over 10 years of experience within the agriculture industry, we are now about to launch a new sorter based on the same unique detector technology, but 5 times faster, reaching up to 15 metric tons per hour and featuring a revolutionary modular and compact design that enables maximum flexibility along with substantially lower investment cost and running cost. On top of that, cost-effective installation, cost-effective operation, and cost-effective upgradability. All in all, this has allowed us to increase the group of customers and significantly lower the time required to reach a return on investment. At the same time, it has allowed us to completely update our patent portfolio. The model will be launched in January, and the first unit will be delivered already in Q1 this year. I give the word back to you, Andreas.
Thank you, Hansi. So, a little bit in general about BoMill and our way moving forward here during the year that is coming. So, first of all, our head office is located in Malmö. We have a very strong team with many years of experience in developing and launching disruptive innovation globally for the grain and the food industry. On the market side and the sales side, we are collaborated with committed distributors in dedicated market. All in all, we have up till now installed around 40 equipments in different areas of Europe and in North America. And we have ever since the foundation of BoMill worked on a patent strategy that we have further developed during the last year, especially when it comes to protecting the new BoMill Insight machine that Hansi mentioned here before. So moving forward, especially with the launch of a new machine, the BoMill Insight, and the fact that we have also worked quite a lot on develop good relationships here during these last years with our distributors and also a couple of different prospect customers. We are very excited about the year that we have ahead of us. We have a very clear business plan in place that is defining what we will focus on. But I would say in a company like ours that is in this phase where we are, it's even more important that we are defining what we are not doing. And we are dedicating our resources on what we have decided upon. So focus here is crucial moving forward. We have defined the customer segments, and we have defined the geographical areas, including a sales process. And the sales process here is important, especially when you're taking a disruptive innovation like ours to market. It's very much about focus and understanding the customer problems and the customer needs. And in many cases, we are not even aware that they have these problems themselves because they are used to do things in a certain way, and we have done it for a long time. That's why it's so important that we have these in-depth discussions and understandings about the problems that the customer has. And as a part of this is, of course, also important to get an understanding what the return of investment will look like for the customer. And normally it varies between 6 to 24 months. Very often it's right in between. Normally in a year's time, you have a good return of investment of a BoMill Insight. That's by experience we have now. Coming back to what Hansi said here before, the machine will be launched in January. To be more exact, it will be on the 26th of January. There will be some launch campaign connected to that. But all in all, I mean, what it's about is that BoMill makes every grain count. It's very much about moving towards having healthier consumer products, well in line with the clean label trend that we see all over the world. And it's about addressing the needs of a grain value chain by reducing the waste and support food security. Especially important today with the turbulence that we see in the grain value chains globally. Again, coming back to the war that we have here in Europe, in the Ukraine, between Ukraine and Russia. Food security is key, and that we can see is affecting the grain value chain all over the world. We support the demands around sustainability. We have tighter regulations and higher costs when it comes to fertilizers. And there's also regulations, and all this makes it important to reduce the consumption of the use of fertilizers. And that actually leads us to it will be crucial to get better use of a local production and the locally sourced grain. So with that said, that is actually the last comment or the statement from our side. Many thanks for your attention and listening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andreas and Hansi. Very interesting. Very interesting. You have a very strong value proposition, as you mentioned before, Andreas, when we met. You have a flexible product already out there to be tested. And you're really focused in your sales process. With that said, there's a couple of questions popping up here. And one of the questions is about, I think, much more about the future, because that goes on your revenue guidance and outlook, and that's probably too early to say something. But we could turn it around with the sales process, you know, Andreas, and the launch in January, and all these test facilities. Do you expect to see any sales coming in the second half of 2023?
Yes, we do. I can say that we have actually already received the first order of the new machine, and it will be delivered here in February, March. To a customer here in quite local here in Denmark on Jutland.
Okay, that's the announcement you made earlier on this year.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And of course, we have a sales funnel that makes us confident that we will have, as I said before, we will have a good year ahead of us, and I'm confident that we will have significant sales.
And just to understand it right now, you focus on the flour mills and the brewery sector in two different areas. Are they the typical customer, or are you selling to the wholesalers who collect the grain?
Yeah. Okay. So okay. Let me start with the flour mills. We can say that we have identified strong business cases with the flour milling industry here in Europe. And then when you say brewery, it's actually what we mean is actually on the malting side, the producers of a malt barley that we are collaborating. Okay, we are adding value all the way actually from, I would say, all the way from the farmers basically all the way to the breweries. But our counterparts are normally the malt houses that is producing and making the malt barley in general. Now we're generalizing here.
And they are selling to the breweries.
Exactly.
Okay.
In some cases they are integrated. In some other cases they are working as a normal supplier customer relationship.
And of course they have several breweries, so it makes it easier for you because you can focus on this B2B opportunity at the wholesaler level.
Yeah.
Then there's a question here about the waste percentage, and I know you mentioned it already. But if you look into the conventional technology compared to your technology, because I know you showed the slide, Andreas or Hansi, but maybe you can repeat it. How much do you waste today, and how much of that waste can you actually improve with the test you carried out so far?
Okay, I can let you answer that, Hansi.
Yeah, I don't know exactly which figure. I think it might have been your figure that was referred to, but I should say it varies a lot between different areas. So when we're looking at Latin America, for instance, and there's no good way of registering the loss. But when we talk to key players, looking at a country like Brazil, due to weather conditions, they are, I think it's around 30% of the barley that's being grown for malting is not suitable for malting because of too heavy rains during harvest. And this is something that previously was never considered because it was not a problem of the malting operations or the larger corporations that, or should I say end producers. It was a problem of the farmer. But now, because of this sustainability aspect that has been introduced into many companies, they realize that the farmland that is used to produce the product is a lot more than they had anticipated now that they are looking at the carbon footprint, for instance.
Interesting. Then there's a question here as well about the market size, and you mentioned that for me before, Andreas, and also how many machines, i.e. what kind of market share do you expect? This is a huge market. But maybe you could elaborate a little on your price offering compared to the existing ones, because everything equal, I know you have a strong value proposition, but your system is actually modular, so you are able to scale up depending on the client and the client's needs.
And that actually comes back to the unique design of equipment. So you're able to, a fully equipped machine will have a capacity of 15 tons per hour around. But that is with 8 modules installed in the machine. But if you like, the customer could start with 1 module, and then you have a capacity of around 2 tons an hour. Or they could start with 4, and then they have half of 15 tons, 7.5, 8 tons capacity. So it's very much scalable to the needs of a customer.
Yes. Can you mention anything about prices, or
the selling price for a fully equipped machine is approximately 5.3 million Swedish kronor.
Yeah. And then maybe one last question here. There's a question about what is the single biggest risk for the company right now? That's a good question.
Single biggest risk.
Yeah.
That's that the world food shortage is going to be resolved by a miracle.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Actually, it's a good summary.
That's good, Hansi.
Yeah.
And because in terms of finances, you are well equipped as it is of today, Andreas.
We have a very solid ownership base of a company, so we have a good support from our owners, our shareholders.
Yeah. Well, with that said, thanks a lot, Andreas and Hansi, for your great presentation, great slides, and for the audience, thanks a lot for